My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a student, or at least, I was trying to become one on my own terms. The fluorescent lights of the Northwood University Dean of Admissions office hummed, reflecting off the polished mahogany desk. My stepfather, Richard, stood over me, his face a mask of furious red. "You embarrassed me, Sarah," he hissed, his voice low but vibrating with suppressed rage. "A waitlist? After everything I've done?" He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in, and shoved me back against the edge of the desk. The sharp corner bit into my lower back, and a jolt of pain shot through me. His other hand rose, clenched into a fist, hovering inches from my face. I flinched, bracing for impact, my breath catching in my throat. Just as his arm began its downward arc, the heavy oak door swung open with a soft thud. Dr. Evelyn Albright, the Dean of Admissions herself, stepped back into the room, her eyes widening in stunned disbelief as she took in the scene. Richard froze, his fists suspended in the air. The silence that followed was so profound it felt like a scream. I didn't know then that this moment, witnessed by the very person who held the key to my academic future, would be the catalyst for me finally reclaiming my life. To understand the raw fury that consumed Richard in that office, you need to understand the decade that preceded it. My mother, Eleanor, married Richard when I was 10. My biological father had left years before, a ghost in my memory, and Richard, a successful but intensely controlling real estate developer, stepped into the void. He didn't just become my stepfather, he became my project manager. From the moment he saw my report card in 5th grade, adorned with straight A's and glowing remarks, he decided my future was his to sculpt. He believed in potential, but his definition of potential was a direct reflection of his own ambition. Northwood University, an elite institution with a formidable reputation, became his obsession for me. It wasn't about what I wanted to study, or where I felt I'd thrive. It was about the prestige, the connections, the ability to casually drop at his golf club that my stepdaughter is going to Northwood. He paid for the best tutors, SAT prep classes that cost more than my mother's monthly salary, and even dictated which summer programs I attended, all meticulously chosen to bolster my Northwood application. He'd given me a small, polished silver keychain with the Northwood crest etched into it the day I started high school, a constant reminder of the future he had laid out. It felt less like a gift and more like a brand. The pressure was relentless. Every grade, every test score, every extracurricular activity was scrutinized. When I tried to express interest in a local art club, he scoffed, "That won't get you into Northwood, Sarah. Focus on debate. It shows critical thinking." My mother, a gentle woman who had always tried to mediate, grew quieter over the years, retreating into herself. She'd offer a soft, "Richard, maybe Sarah wants to," but his booming voice would quickly cut her off, dismissing her concerns as emotional weakness. I learned to internalize the pressure, to strive for perfection, not for myself, but to avoid his cold disappointment, which felt far worse than any yelling. When college application season arrived, it was a battleground. I applied to several schools, including a reputable state university that had a strong program in environmental science, a field I genuinely loved. Richard dismissed it as a fallback. Northwood was the only option he truly acknowledged. He reviewed every word of my essays, dictating changes, ensuring they aligned with his vision of a Northwood candidate. I felt like a puppet, my own voice stifled beneath his grand pronouncements. The acceptances started rolling in. I got into the state university with a scholarship, and a deferral from another good private school. My mother was thrilled. "That's wonderful, honey," she'd whispered, squeezing my hand. But Richard barely glanced at the letters. He was waiting for the big one. Then, the Northwood letter arrived. It wasn't an acceptance. It was a waitlist notification. My stomach dropped. I knew what this meant. Richard read it, his jaw tightening, his face darkening like a storm cloud. He crumpled the letter in his hand. "Unacceptable," he growled, the word heavy with menace. "This is a personal insult." He immediately launched into damage control. He called the admissions office repeatedly, demanding to speak to the dean. He leveraged every contact he had, convinced that his influence could override their decision. He insisted that the waitlist was a mistake, an oversight, a failure to recognize my stepdaughter's exceptional potential. The Northwood keychain felt heavier in my backpack, a constant, sharp weight. I tried to explain that waitlists were common, that many excellent students ended up on them, but he wasn't listening. He saw it as a direct challenge to his authority, his ability to control outcomes. Finally, after weeks of persistent calls, he secured a meeting with Dr. Albright, the Dean of Admissions. He framed it to me as our final push, Sarah. We'll show them they made a mistake. I dreaded it. I knew it wouldn't be about me, or my merits. It would be a performance, a demonstration of Richard's power. The morning of the meeting, I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I wore a conservative blouse and skirt, chosen by Richard, and carried my best leather satchel. He insisted I bring the Northwood keychain, clipping it to my backpack zipper so it was visible. Show them you're committed, he'd ordered. We arrived at the admissions building, a grand stone edifice that seemed to loom over me. In the waiting area, Richard paced, muttering to himself, reviewing his talking points. When we were finally called in, he strode ahead, leaving me to trail behind him. Dr. Albright was a poised, kind-faced woman in her late 50s. She greeted us warmly, but I could sense her professional reserve. Richard immediately launched into his aggressive pitch, detailing my achievements, dismissing my other acceptances as mere backups, and emphasizing his own contributions to my academic journey. He barely let me speak, interjecting whenever I tried to offer a nuance or a different perspective. Dr. Albright listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When Richard finally paused for breath, she spoke calmly. Mr. Davies, Sarah is an excellent candidate, and we appreciate your passion for her future. However, our waitlist is comprehensive, and decisions are made based on a holistic review of all applicants. At this point, the waitlist is final for this cycle. We do encourage Sarah to consider her other excellent options. Her words were polite, but the message was clear: no means no. Richard's face contorted. He started to argue, his voice rising, accusing the university of overlooking talent. Dr. Albright, maintaining her composure, said, "Excuse me for just a moment. I need to take a quick call." She stepped out, closing the door softly behind her, leaving me alone with Richard's simmering rage. That was when the number stopped looking accidental, and the pattern became terrifyingly clear. Richard wasn't just disappointed, he was personally wounded, as if the waitlist was a judgment on him. His inability to control this outcome, to bend the will of an institution, had stripped him of his carefully constructed illusion of omnipotence. His face was inches from mine, his eyes blazing. "You ruined this," he seethed, ignoring the fact that I had no control over the waitlist. "You didn't try hard enough. You didn't want it enough." It wasn't about my future, it was about his ego, his perceived failure to place his prized possession exactly where he intended. The moment Dr. Albright re-entered the room, my stepfather's hand was still suspended in the air. His face, contorted with rage moments before, now registered a flicker of pure panic. Dr. Albright didn't flinch. Her gaze, initially wide with shock, hardened into something steely and professional. "Mr. Davies," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I think we're done here." She didn't raise her voice, but the authority in her tone was absolute. She stepped fully into the room, leaving the door ajar, then walked directly to her desk and pressed a button on her phone. "Security to my office, please. Dean Albright." Richard, sputtering, tried to regain his composure. "Evelyn, this is a misunderstanding. Sarah and I were just having a private discussion." He even tried to force a placating smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I stood frozen, my back still aching from the desk, my arm throbbing where he'd grabbed me. The Northwood keychain on my backpack seemed to mock me, a symbol of everything I was supposed to be, but wasn't. Dr. Albright ignored him, her eyes on me. "Sarah," she said, her voice softer now, "are you all right?" I could only nod, tears welling in my eyes, not just from the pain, but from the crushing weight of the humiliation and the sudden, undeniable clarity of what had just happened. A moment later, 2 campus security officers arrived. They were discreet but firm. "Mr. Davies, you need to leave the premises immediately," one of them stated. Richard blustered, threatened legal action, demanded to speak to the university president. But Dr. Albright stepped forward. "Mr. Davies, your behavior is unacceptable. You are no longer welcome on this campus. Any further attempts to contact Sarah or the university will result in a formal restraining order and potential charges." She then turned to me. "Sarah, you don't have to leave with him. We have resources here to help you. We can contact your mother, or find you a safe place on campus." In that moment, a profound shift occurred within me. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was over. Aduwed by a fierce, quiet resolve. I looked at Richard, his face red with impotent rage as the security officers gently but firmly guided him towards the door. The Northwood keychain on my backpack, once a symbol of his control, now felt like a lead weight I needed to shed. I took a deep breath. "I don't want to leave with him," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I don't want to attend Northwood." The decision, once made, felt like a dam breaking. Dr. Albright nodded, a small, knowing smile on her face. She arranged for me to stay in a temporary dorm room on campus for the night, and connected me with the university's counseling services. I called my mother from a secure line. She was distraught, but her initial reaction of fear for Richard quickly gave way to concern for me. She didn't defend him. "Oh, Sarah," she choked out, "I should have seen this coming. I'm so sorry." She wired me some money and promised to send a box of clothes. The next day, with the dean's support, I filed a police report against Richard for assault. It was terrifying, but each step felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. The university banned him from campus and offered to provide any necessary documentation for my case. I officially withdrew my application from Northwood, a decision that felt incredibly liberating. Instead, I accepted the scholarship offer from the state university, the one with the environmental science program I actually wanted. It wasn't as prestigious in Richard's eyes, but it was mine. The legal process was slow and emotionally draining. Richard, of course, denied everything, claiming I was unstable and ungrateful. But Dr. Albright's testimony, combined with my own statement and the visible bruising on my arm and back, was compelling. He eventually pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor assault charge, resulting in a hefty fine and a mandatory anger management program. He cut me off completely, financially and emotionally, but my mother, quietly, steadily, started sending me money each month, a small act of defiance that spoke volumes. Months later, I was settling into my new university. It was a bustling campus, not as manicured as Northwood, but vibrant and full of possibility. I found my stride in my environmental science classes, passionate about the work and surrounded by peers who shared my interests. One afternoon, walking across campus to the library, I saw a freshman fumbling with her dorm key, a small, polished silver keychain dangling from it. It had the crest of this university, my university. It was a simple object, identical in form to the one Richard had given me years ago, but its meaning was entirely different. This keychain wasn't a symbol of someone else's expectations or a future dictated by another's ego. It was just a keychain, a practical item for a student, carrying the weight of nothing more than my own chosen path.